Got a good guest on the line. David Pick's going to join us for a little bit. Talk about some NBA, and Sarge making the big news, says he wants to play for the Philadelphia 76ers. We welcome David on board for a couple moments on this Monday. How are you, David?
I'm doing great. How are you doing?
Well, we appreciate a couple moments, and let's get into it. First of all, we'll get into some of the Sixers in a minute. Let me get your overall thoughts, though, on the news with Steph Curry now missing about 2 weeks with that injury, with that sprained MCL, with that knee for the Golden State Warriors. And how much does this injury really change the complexion, not only of the Western Conference? I'm not really going to say the Rockets series. I still think they close it out. If you look at what they've done against the Houston Rockets, you're absolutely right. I mean, they should walk through that series against the Houston Rockets. Again, couple minutes with David Pick. Does a good job. He's a pro basketball reporter for Bleacher Report. You can follow him on Twitter, IMDPICK. We'll get his thoughts on the rest of the Western Conference. You heard some of the updates as well throughout the day that Sarge is actually ready to play for the Philadelphia 76ers, where from an international level, everyone was banking on seeing this kid play. Looks like by all accounts, he'll suit up for the Philadelphia 76ers next year. But I want to continue to talk a little NBA playoffs with David and still get his thoughts on it. And he's absolutely right. I think when you look at the way that it's unfolded right now as we bring David back on the line, David, I agree with you 100%. Look, you look at now all of a sudden, if you are Oklahoma, if you are the Clippers, Oklahoma City, the Clippers, if you are San Antonio, you never want to see a guy go down, but within those walls, they are saying, wow, if there was ever an opportunity to pick off Golden State with the loss of Curry, whoever's in the next series, it would be this opportunity. Because even if he comes back, remember, might be a little rusty, might be very tentative to kind of get over that injury. A team could take certain advantage of it.
Right, and it plays with you mentally. Do you go as hard? Do you play in full speed? Will he shoot more than he'll try and penetrate because he wouldn't want to add or risk another blow to that? It just plays with his game throughout every time he'll be on the court. And you knocked it on the head. I mean, all those teams are looking right now, and they're kind of, they want more information than anyone about what's going on with Steph Curry because they have to prepare for that series eventually, because we know the Golden State Warriors will be there. I want to say regardless, but to win it without Steph Curry, it's almost, I think it's impossible.
One more before we turn our attention to the Sixers for a moment. When you look at the NBA right now and the Lakers making a move with Byron Scott, they can come out with any press release. They fired him. It was an absolute debacle. And you almost feel for him because look at the roster. I mean, Kobe Bryant couldn't wait to get out of there and retire. When you look at what's going on in New York with Phil Jackson and the Knicks, I mean, you're talking about two storied franchises that can't seem to get out of their way. First of all, at the end of the day,
also the Brooklyn Nets.
Well, yeah. I mean, they can't get out of their way as well. But I'm not going to put those with the Knicks and the Lakers. But no, your point taken. Those three franchises are just wow in disarray. Who's the best fit as far as head coach for the New York Knicks? And I don't want to hear that Phil Jackson is so enamored by Kurt Rambis that he's going to make him the next head coach, because Kurt Rambis is not the answer.
Right. Yeah, I agree with that. I don't think he's the answer going forward. I think he did his job as an interim head coach. But I think Phil Jackson is comfortable with familiarity. And, you heard the names. I mean, he had Derek Fisher, who played with him and then he took the Rambis who worked with him. And now, Brian Shaw is thrown in there. And this is a guy who's been fired from Denver. No one really has been linking him to other teams but the Knicks. So obviously Phil is trying to take someone that he knows, who either worked with or played for him. I don't know if Brian Shaw is the answer to that. I personally think I'd like to see Mark Jackson over there. I think that Mark, I think it stings, definitely burns for him to see the Golden State Warriors winning and playing and, breaking the records that they're doing right now without him, post Mark Jackson era. And I think he's bringing that hunger with him wherever he goes next. And I think he can be a good product for New York. Obviously, with Tom Thibodeau out, Jeff Van Gundy is also, fishing for a job, but I don't think it'll be New York because he's very strong-minded and he wants a president role as well. And Phil Jackson's there, so no. But I definitely think I'd like to see Mark Jackson in there. For the Lakers, who knows? Again, now Derek Fisher's back in L.A. That name's out there. Luke Walton, former Laker, has also been tossed there in the mix. But that's a more tricky situation. Byron Scott played these kids on the Kobe farewell tour the whole year. Now without him, isn't he worthy of getting a shot with these upcoming stars, like with the Clarkson and the Randalls and the D'Angelo Russell? Like, I'm not so sold on the move to fire him, though it was, it needed to be done because they were just catastrophe.
No, you're right, and I think Jackson certainly has that burning desire, and I think he's ready for that opportunity.
David, this is Josh here.
Yeah.
I wanted to ask you about the Dario Saric. The reports are coming out that he is going to be coming to the 76ers last year. While his statistics over in Turkey are not, mind-boggling, he is a top talent. Can you describe for the audience a little bit about what Dario Saric is as a talent right now and what he could become?
Well, his stats in the Turkish league are a little lower than what they are in the Euro League. The numbers are very similar, but he's shooting at a much higher percentage in the Euro League, which is a more tough top competition, probably the best competition outside the NBA with the best European teams. Turkish league has its restrictions where they play a certain number of foreigners on the court at all times, so he wouldn't be getting as many minutes or playing it at a certain positions because they have to, position guys with passports. So I would really take into account his Turkish stats more than his EuroLeague stats because compared to last year, he's shooting 40% from the three, 90+% from the free throw line. I think he only missed 3 free throws this whole season shooting. So that's encouragement for sure. He's playing at the 4, which is very tough for him because the makeup of the team was terrible. They brought in Derek Brown, who used to play in the NBA, who won titles overseas, who's making over $2 million a year, and that really sliced down his minutes. But the team, all in all, was dysfunctional. The coach was just fired. He didn't even shake the players' hands in his exit speech in the locker room. No one was on board with him, and I think Dario, despite all, made the best of the situation that he was given. He hit a game-winning jump shot in the EuroLeague this season. He's produced, he's putting up good numbers, but that team, it's just built poorly. There are no penetrators who kick and drive or could play with him pick and roll. So it was hard for him, but I still think he's putting in good effort. What can he bring to the NBA? His shooting percentage, like I mentioned last year, he shot 30% for the season. This year, he bolted up to 40%. I think in the modern era of basketball where we're going small, I think Dario could be great at the 4. Might be a tad slow on the 3. I don't think he can defend or he isn't quick enough to defend, taller threes or guys who can really handle because he's not such a big ball handler. But he's ready. He's hungry. He told me directly over the summer. We were together in Serbia. We stayed at the same hotel. I met him a few times, and he told me that he wanted to go then and there, but he couldn't because of the buyout situation and his contract in Turkey. But now, a well-based source in the locker room is telling me that Dario has been very fluent about telling his players, telling his teammates, guys, I'm not planning on coming back next year. I basically had enough. I've been here for 2 years. We haven't been able to win anything. It's time for me to make the jump to the NBA. He's in constant contact with people from Philadelphia who want him there as well. I think he can be a great piece of the franchise.
We've heard from Fran Fraschilla of ESPN. They talk about Dario Saric on defense. He has a bit of a nasty streak. Can you speak to that a little bit?
A nasty streak on defense?
Yes.
Like I said, I think he's kind of a tweener, between the 3 and the 4. He's very smart. He's not the best ball handler. And I think that in the NBA, he'll have some trouble with the quickness of the 3-man and more the aggressiveness of the 4-man because, he really falls between those positions, but he does a lot of good stuff while he plays both. But I don't know if he's a defensive liability because he has a great motor. He doesn't back down from anybody. He thinks he's like the best player in the world, but not in a cocky way, but it just comes across as like Dario won't back down from anyone. He isn't scared of a matchup. But, I can agree with Fran where he has some defensive mislaps, and it just but that's that team as a whole, like I said, no one really cared to play for that coach. So I wouldn't be so surprised if some players really just didn't just didn't care. They didn't want to play defense just to get him out of there.
Who is his greatest comparison for you in the NBA currently or in past?
That's a great question. Great question and a tough question. I don't really think that, no one really jumps into my head at the moment. I don't know. You caught me there.
He does that sometimes.
Sometimes
they're too knowledgeable, these young guys. Yeah, these young guys are too knowledgeable, David. Hey, last one, but it was a very good question. Last one from me before we let you get out of here. Going back to the NBA playoffs for a second, you look at all the numbers, and now obviously the Spurs are now favored to win the NBA title. I just have a feeling if Curry comes back and the Golden State see, to me, if the Warriors didn't win the finals, it doesn't matter how many games they won this year. Now you throw in the little monkey wrench here that he's hurt, he's injured. Now they're susceptible to losing, right? There's a little chink in the armor. They can be plucked, they can be picked off. And it's unfortunate because you know this covering the sport. It's very hard to win back-to-back in any sport, even the NBA, because it's a long season and playoffs are even longer. If you look at a team that now will truly take advantage of this, I'll give you two. The Spurs out of the West, because I think what they've done with those veterans and Pop is unbelievable. And let's throw LeBron out there for a moment. Out of the two, who has a better chance to beat the Golden State Warriors? If they get to the finals, just say they get to the finals and they take on Cleveland. Right. Can Cleveland now pluck them apart? Can Cleveland take care of them? Or can the San Antonio Spurs...
Without Stephen Curry?
Yeah, without
Stephen Curry. No, I don't think Cleveland can match up against the Golden State Warriors in a series. Hypothetically speaking, right, if their big three are healthy because they weren't last year and that's what killed them.
Sure.
They're playing great right now. All of them are averaging double digits. I still think the Spurs have a better shot at winning it because the one game that Golden State beat San Antonio, that last game where they went, it was 72-9 in San Antonio. That was, Steph Curry went nuts, and they needed that performance, that madness from him to beat San Antonio. So without him, I don't even think they can last 6 games against the Spurs, and that's why I think the Spurs. You said they're favorites, and I'm definitely seconding you on that. I don't think the Cleveland Cavaliers can go all the way.
I think Cleveland actually might get bounced by Miami.
Because I'm just matching them up against the Spurs because if they make the finals and the Spurs are there without Steph Curry and Golden State, so the Spurs are going to be there. And there's just so much one-on-one ball handling ISOs in Cleveland.
Yep.
Whereas the Spurs are a complete basketball team and they break you down as a team. And I just think that's where they're so much better than Cleveland.
David, great stuff. We appreciate you jumping on board for a couple of minutes. Really good insight abroad and also on the States. Appreciate it. Hopefully we can get you back on again.
Yep. Thanks for having me. Take care.
All right. You got it. Good stuff from David Pick.